Not them before I started reading it though. I read the first story and I closed the book for 3 days. I said, what? Why our books always filled with such sorrow and grief? Hi there. So I'm a little late to the party, but please indulge me. I finally read A Broken People's Playlist. Damn, this book. You would not tell me before I started reading it though. I read the first story and I closed the book for 3 days. I said, what? Why our books always filled with such sorrow and grief? Because it was so first off, A Broken Post playlist is written by Chimeka Garrix. I hope I pronounced your name right. If I didn't, my apologies. And it is basically short stories inspired by different songs, and I like that the author also like put the songs there so you could sort of listen and then as you read, right, which was something I was not able to do because I was reading it in different places. Well, yes, a few things to say. I would try to keep this as short as possible. First of all, if you are yet to read it, please go and read it. But please get ready, with a box of tissues beside you because you will cry. If you don't cry, guy, can't check yourself out. But yeah, the author basically touches on like different stories. One of the first things that I love about the book was how that some of the stories intertwine, or rather some of the characters intertwine, right? You'd see a story of there was a story of, I think, the second story of the guy that was a DJ. You'd later see him much later when he had like some um you know things with his wife. You'd see his story much later. There was this other guy, those other characters, let me sing guy, those other character Dami, and the kind of person he was. And then you would then see much later again his story surfacing in another person's story. So I think that was, and then there was also 28 the doctor. Right, that was, I love that. I liked the in and out that the author tried to do. Now, stories that stood out to me. The first story was a tearjerker. I am not even going to lie. Because how you look for love, you finally find love, and life will take the love from you. Like how? Like how? In the most, it was definitely a story. But if there was anything that I learned from it was how that um love does not wait. Time does not wait. Life does not wait. Right? You love someone today. Tell them you love them today. Don't wait. I think another story. Then, oh, before I forget, one thing I love that the author did was that he had these very openings. How would I describe it? It was this very attention grabbing opening that you cannot help but wonder, what am I reading? Right, you hear openings of, it's your wife's 30th birthday, and then you are sitting in your car unsure where to bury your daughter, and I'm like, how? Right, you read stories of, John died when he was wearing your maroon t-shirt, and I'm like, how? Ticket. So he starts to like the end and then walks you through like how the story flows, and it's so beautiful. Right, so I really like the first story. I love the story of course, I cannot remember the exact title of the chapters now, but the story of the man who was trying to bury his wife, like I mentioned earlier. I also liked the story of there was this story that I remember I read on the plane. The one where the men were talking about where one man was talking about how that his wife judged him, and then like it was a group of friends. And I love that story especially because it was told from the male perspective. A lot of books and the main character is the female's perspective, and I especially loved that you just, so it was just a story on like a group of men just having conversations, doing whatever it is they are doing, and it was a refreshing one. I liked that especially. Right, it's a collection of really short stories. The first story is honestly my favorite. Then, oh, before I forget, I want to round this up as soon as possible. The story of the guy in Port Harcourt who was looking for a job to support his mom, and um he was wrongfully convicted. It was, that's one of the stories that highlights this thing that people say of me, Nigeria not happen to you. Because how? And it's the fact that many of these stories, as much as it's fiction, it happens. Like people actually, face. I remember I was also reading that. I think I read a lot. There were a lot of stories that I read when I was when I was in transit. I think I also read that on a plane, and I was almost crying because I'm like, for what reason? And things, a lot of things like that happen. I also thought about the fact that the author, I think he must have grew up in Port Harcourt. I've never been to Port Harcourt, right? So it was quite an interesting one to just see and read the different stories that could come out from other parts of Nigeria. I would again advise you, if you're yet to read the Broken People's Playlist, please go and get your copy. It's a very good book. I mean, you would cry, but it's sometimes tears are good. So yeah, if there is one quote that I'm trying to see if I underline, because I typically like to underline books, but like if there is one quote that or if there's one story rather that I feel like really resonated with me, was the story of Dami, who was about to die. He knew he was about to die, and in his fashion he decided to throw a what do you call it? A funeral party, right? Basically to just celebrate him before he actually has his funeral. And we were reading that story from the point of view of his older brother. And there was something his older brother said, right? Dami was not, of course, the most responsible younger brother. He was very responsible, did so many awful things. At some point he stole from the company, right? He stole like, I think, $2 million or 2 million naira, I'm not so sure, but stole like a large sum of money. And his older brother was so angry he did not speak to him for 4 years. But he was recounting it that the money that his brother stole, he was able to make that money back in less than 6 months. But he did not speak to his brother for 4 years, out of anger, out of spite, out of whatever. And that if he could go back in time, he wished he could have just see, I'm already tearing up now. He wished he could have just had that time to be able to speak more to him. And that resonated a lot with me, because as humans, it's so very easy for us to focus on the hurt that someone has done to us, so much so that we forget that time is limited, right? And that even if people in their, again, this is not to excuse bad behavior, right? I'm not saying you should excuse bad behavior, but like he said, this was, money is a resource that can be made, right? It's a resource that, as much as I lose it today, anything can happen tomorrow and I can gain double or even triple of it, right? But time is a resource that I can never gain back. I mean, you could think about that how you want to interpret it, but for me, it was just very poignant. It stayed with me, right? So, yes, a collection of, I think, 12 short stories. Really, really good. Really, really insightful. If you're yet to read it, please do and let me know. And if you have read it, let me know what you think. If you had any stories that really stood out to you, just let me know in the comment section. Bye, guys.